There are four things I want to talk about very, very briefly. I'm not getting into details. The reason being, when some of us are there with you in person, we'll be able to get into the details. So to start with, I don't want to get into all the nuts and bolts and the nitty-gritties of India Reads program. So let me give you an overall view of what exactly this program is all about. There are four things I want to talk about, as I said, very, very briefly. First, there are two kinds of crises we need to be concerned about. One is external crisis. Obviously, all of us know what that external crisis is. I'm referring to climate change. And the entire world has taken cognizance of it, and the environmentalists are at it. The other kind of crisis that we need to be concerned about is the, I would like to call it cognitive decline, intellectual crisis. Unfortunately, till now, the world does not take a note of. There are ripples, people are talking about it, but I think we need to pay much more attention than, I would say, the external crisis, that's a climate change. Why this cognitive decline or intellectual crisis? It's primarily because of the generations of students that we have with us, popularly referred as Gen Z or Gen Z. These students, all of us know, are the visual generations. And we know, all of us quite familiar with that, the way they use the screen time. We are concerned about it. And especially when they are looking at the mobile screen, we know how fast they scroll up and down. And there are some who say that today readers are reading more because of the screen. Obviously, yes. But what kind of reading are they doing? When we say reading involves certain amount of investment of time, investment of energy. And moreover, the theoreticians say that reading has four important components to it, aspects to it, or dimensions to it, whatever you call them. When we say reading, it has to be understood, stored, retrieved, and applied. Only when all these four aspects are taken into consideration, you could say that you have read something or you have learned something. But today's learners, when they are scrolling the screen up and down, I don't think that any of the things are happening. They are looking at the images, no doubt. They are fascinated about the images that they come across. They are looking at the text, but they're not reading the text. That's a cause of concern. Even though some people say that our readers are reading more these days, yes, they are reading. But they are reading things which are not, I would call them trash, which are not required to be read. And even if they read, it almost amounts to non-reading, primarily because they're not internalizing them. They're not storing them. They're not retrieving them. They're not applying them. So it almost amounts to non-reading. That's our concern. And we are the ones, we need to address this particular issue. We need to arrest it, avert it. If we teachers don't do it, I don't think anybody else will do it. Politicians will not do it. Bureaucrats will not do it. Doctors will not do it. Engineers will not do it. Lawyers will not do it. Nobody will do it. It is our terrain. It's our concern. I think we as teachers, we need to be deeply involved in fixing this. If we don't fix it, I don't think anybody else will fix it. Today, the problem might not appear to be so very intense, but in another, because, after COVID or after mobile phone, smartphone, we are just about 2 decades old. And there are research studies which are talking about the adverse impact of the screen time. The screen time adversely affects the academic performance. It has been clearly established. There are so many studies in UK, USA, and several such places. We have clearly established the issues with the screen time. There are so many issues associated with the screen time, but we as academicians, we are concerned about this lack of reading habit. We need to address that. Why reading? Why is reading so very important? We all say reading is considered to be the mother of all skills. If our students, if our learners don't read, they can't become better speakers. They can't become better writers. They can't become better listeners. They can't even become better readers, because reading, you'll be able to get, it's a skill. You'll be able to get the skill by only repeatedly reading the text that you're asked to read or you're interested in reading. And more importantly, we talk about, creative thinking, critical thinking, problem solving. When you're talking about 21st skills, we list out all these skills. And all these skills our learners will not be able to acquire if they don't have the habit of reading. So if our learners or the future generations of learners don't read for another 2 or 3 decades time, I think, their cognition is going to be virtually empty. I don't know. Some of you might have read Time Machine, H.G. Wells' A Time Machine. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. The narrator travels into distant future and he comes across people who are of just about 4 inches, and their cognition, this is what the concern is all about, is just about 5-year-olds. The grown-ups have the cognition of 5-year-olds. If you know that sci-fi is turning out to be true these days, I think H.G. Wells in the previous century, 19th century, toward the end of the 19th century, I suppose it was written in 1987, was able to visualize how the future is going to be. I think the technology is doing enough damage on our cognition as well. It has already affected our physical prowess. Okay, because of the technology, we are not using our body, many of our body parts, and in a way, it's affecting our cognition as well. And with the Chat GPT, I'm sure all of you are familiar with it. I don't have to be elaborate on it. And it, like the future seems to be bleak. Our cognition seems to be bleak. It looks as though we are not going to use it at all. So that's what we are concerned about it. That's the reason why ELTAI has taken upon itself to start this India Reads movement. Okay, what is it that we are going to do India Reads movement? We are trying to create, we are in the process of creating 100 modules for primary students. When we say primary students, it is from 3rd standard to 5th standard, and the secondary level, virtually it's high school, from 6th to 9th. Obviously, after that, 10th, +1, +2, we know the concerns of students as well as the parents. And the tertiary level students from 1st year to 3rd year, because this India Reads is conceptualized as a 3-year program. It's not, few months, or 1 or 2 years time, because establishing a reading skill can be perfected only by repeatedly doing it. In 3 years time, we hope that we'll be able to make the students, our learners, readers. That's the reason why we want to offer it as a 3-year event. And then we are creating 100 modules. Just 1 or 2 words about what exactly we mean by modules. Each module will deal with one of the aspects of reading. What do I mean by that? We as adults, we know that we read fiction and non-fiction. Okay, if you're looking at fiction, under fiction, there are various kinds of fiction. We have mystery novels, we have crime novels, we have utopian novels, we have dystopian novels, we have got sci-fi novels, we have got romance novels, we have got historical novels. At least there are about 25 categories of novels. Similarly, if you're looking at non-fiction, that's also one of the popular genres read by adults like us. When the children learn, when they become adults, these are the ones that they are going to read. That's the reason why the focus is going to be on fiction and non-fiction. If you're looking at non-fiction, we have obviously, biographies, autobiographies, memoirs, new age books, self-help books. We have journalistic writing, philosophical writing, historical writing, scientific writing. Again, another 25 categories of them. Another thing is reading skills, call them reading strategies, because learners have to be familiar with the different kind of reading strategies. They are in a way familiar with skimming and scanning, but there are many more strategies. We have got things like previewing, predicting, inferencing, creative reading, critical reading. Again, there are about more than 25 reading strategies. The idea is that we want our learners to be familiar with the range of text genres, text types, and the reading strategies that they can adopt. The reading strategy should vary depending on the purpose for which they are reading a particular text. And unfortunately, the academia, the English program that we offer, or even literature students that are not exposed to, they're not being familiarized with these kinds of text ranges. So I think we have reached a point where we need to familiarize our learners, expose our learners to the range of texts that are available. It's not that they need to get interested in every genre of them, but sometime they might get interested, but they need to become familiar with the lack of knowledge should not be an excuse. Okay, they need to become familiar with all these genres. That's the reason, that's one of the main aspects of our main aims of India Reads program. And each module will have at least about 4 components. What are these 4 components? Each module will have 4 components. These are: 1, it will have audio and video, or one of them. It will have in-session reading materials. It will have engagement, and it will have the 4th component is the off-session reading materials. Let me illustrate it. Only then we will be able to concretize it. Okay, let me look at maybe a non-fiction autobiography. Let me give examples of how this particular module would be run for our students. Maybe this program need not necessarily be, maybe this module can start with a video. I'm going to share that video. Dr. Nigam or Dr. Neeru would send it across all of us over here after the program, maybe in a day or two. But we will start with a video. This video, we are not downloading from any source, not from YouTube. We are producing our own video involving students. They call it students because it's easy for the students to identify themselves with these students. We are trying to keep away from, from the teachers or the grown-ups. We are trying to involve students as much as possible. These students will discuss among them. There are 3 students. They discuss among themselves what autobiography is all about. Some of the leading autobiographers, some of the components, aspects which are common to all the autobiographies, some of the autobiographies that they have read and liked, some of the autobiographies they did not like. So, this video is for about 6 or 7 minutes. When they watch this video, they will get an idea of what an autobiography is all about. And, each component is for about 15 minutes. It's a 1-hour in-person session. And they will get an idea of, after watching it, what an autobiography is. Followed by in-session reading. In-session reading, what do I mean by that? For every module, we'll identify 5 books. What are these 5 books? These 5 books, we aren't going to be prescriptive. As far as possible, we are going to be descriptive. We would identify from the students somewhere, not formally, but informally, we would identify the students, some of the autobiographies that interest them. From the list that we gather from them, maybe about 2 or 3 books we could identify. And we as educators, we feel that there are certain must-reads. So at least along with the 2 or 3, we can suggest about 2 books. So totally every module will have 5 books. These 5 books are curated based on the survey that we conduct among our students. And these 5 books will be of different sizes. Some of them would be slender, some of them would be bulky, because for some students, anything more than 100 pages would scare them. And so that's scaring away is not the purpose of this particular program, because we are trying to get them to read for pleasure, read for joy. That is the prime aim of this particular program. They need to read for joy. So these texts also will be from different walks of life. For instance, we could identify a text from sports, Playing It My Way, but by Sachin Tendulkar is one of the famous autobiographies. Then Abdul Kalam's Wings of Fire, or A Long Walk to Freedom by Nelson Mandela. Some of them would be national, some of them would be international. I think that's a kind of range that we need to expose them to. So from these 5 books, or from 1 or 2 books, or maybe 3 books, we would identify certain passages which are inspiring, not first chapter, last chapter, and somewhere in the middle at random. We are not going to choose the passages. We would identify the passages which are inspiring, which would be inspiring to the students. And these passages would be distributed to the students. So after watching the video for about 10 minutes or so, 10 to 15 minutes, they read these autobiographies to get a taste of what autobiography is all about. After that, the third component is the engagement. In other words, a task. We don't want to call it task to sound academic, but we want to call it engagement. We have this module, not merely passively to consume the autobiographies, but they need to actually produce autobiographies. So any engagement in any other module will be a pair work, triad work, small group, never an individual work. It's not a lecture, somebody talking down or talking to the students. Okay, it will be a pair work. For instance, for autobiographies, we could have a pair work in which two of them would talk between themselves. Besides the parentage and educational qualifications, they could talk about the turning points in their lives, defining moments in their lives, and they could talk about the kind of future vision that they have for their lives, some of the influences in their lives, some of the things that they cherish in their lives. The idea is we are getting them to think about themselves, take themselves rather very seriously, so they are in a way ready for writing their own personal history. Okay, that is the idea behind it. We are not merely satisfied with reading somebody's autobiography, but they should be able to produce their own autobiography. So it's a consumption come production. That's the purpose of this particular module. Okay, so they are in a way ready to think about their own personal history. We may not be able to give them time within that 1 hour to write their autobiography, but after session they could do that. So the last component of the module is off-session reading. As I said earlier, there would be 5 books. All these 5 books would be physically taken to the session, and they would be introduced to by the mentors to the students. It's what happens generally at the college level, for instance, we are given a reading list, a bibliography, go and read. That's a kind of instruction that we get from our instructors or from the professors, whoever it may be. We are not going to do that. Each book will be introduced to the students physically. If it's a Wings of Fire, the mentor, need not necessarily be the teacher, the mentor would show the book to the students and read out the blurb, read out forward, read out introduction, read out some of the interesting lines here and there. So they would get a sense of what each book is all about. All the 5 books will be introduced to them. Okay, so in 1 hour, these are the 4 things that we are trying to do it. We will start off, neither necessarily we are starting off with a video, but next session we could start with, let's say, the discussion, a group discussion. Okay, so we are going to have a video, audio, or both of them, and you would have in-session reading materials, in-session reading session, in-session reading, and then we would have engagement, we would have off-session reading material. So in 1 hour, this is how we are packaging it. After the program, the students are going to meet only once a week, because we expect the students to read, if possible, all the 5 books, but we know that they are not going to read all the 5 books. One of them, good. If they don't read even that one book, some pages, that's fine. Even if they don't read those pages, it's quite fine. At least if they attend this 1 hour session, they are able to get a sense of what an autobiography is all about. Likewise, each module will introduce one aspect of reading. We are not going to be repetitious. No module will be repeated. Only once of the 100 modules, we will do autobiography only once. The next session, next week, perhaps could be on sci-fi. Okay, the sci-fi could start with, let's say, a group discussion, then go and have the reading, in-session reading, and it could vary from session to session depending on the teacher, depending on the mentor who is going to conduct it. So that's how these modules are produced by us, involving the students. We aren't going to, download from any source. How are the students going to get the books? Okay, we say that 5 books, we introduce all the books, but the students must read. How are they going to access the books? Okay, this is a major problem. So one other thing that we could perhaps explore is each class should have a classroom library. Classroom library is not a new concept. It is there in the West. It is there in our country also. Some of the well-known rich schools have their own classroom library. I think we need to start that. Classroom library does not mean that we need to have a huge space. Maybe a revolving kind of small thing we can keep in a corner of your room or somewhere in the wall. We are looking at a shelf which can have about 50 books, and we can keep changing the books. Okay, so whenever we deal with a particular module, and the books that we refer to should be displayed over there, and the students should be allowed to borrow those books. And how are we going to get these books? If a class has about 30, 40, 50 students, how are we going to get the books? Okay, there are different ways in which we need to encourage people to donate books. The students themselves, because we know that once a book is read, it is lying idle at home. So can we get the students, if they have that particular book, can we get the students to bring the book and donate to the library? Even for a few days. After that, if they are interested in taking it back, we should allow them to take it back. Parents-teacher association, philanthropist. We are also talking to some of the corporates as a part of CSR. In Chennai, we have, HCL, Shivanada. Every day he donates about 3 crore rupees. If only we can reach him, I'm sure that with your help, we'll be able to reach out to many more Shivanadas. And we are not asking for money from those people. We'll give them a list of books, let them procure the books and distribute to the classroom libraries. So if you ask the students to go to the library and borrow books, they're not going to do that, because we know that library is not the place which is unused these days. One of the success of mobile phone is that it's so handy. They have it with them all the time. It's seeable. It's experienceable. Likewise, the books should be seen by them, should be accessed by them. Only then we can motivate the students to look at the books. As it is, the books have become like a mosquito repellent. The students are driven away from it. But I think we need to galvanize the students. We need to attract the students. And one of the ways in which we can do is, showing it to them. It's right in front of their eyes. When it is in front of their eyes, there is every chance of they're looking at it. So this is one of the ways we are planning to do it. How are we going to implement in each school? There is going to be a training program for every institution, at least about 5 to 6 teachers. These teachers are reading teachers. Need not necessarily be only from the Department of English, but we want them to be reading teachers. Only then they can rub off certain the reading culture among the students. we will train those teachers, and at least once or twice a year we will be training them. So briefly, this is how the program is going to be done. And then the third component is we want each student to have a portfolio. What do I mean by portfolio? What are things that are likely to go into the portfolio? The portfolio will have a profile of a student as a reader. To start with, we need to have this either through the questionnaire or through interviewing. If it's primary school, obviously they can't fill in the questionnaire. So we need to talk to them to find out the kind of reader that person is. Okay, whether it has the habit of reading. If yes, what kind of book? If the person has the habit of reading newspapers, what newspaper, in which language? Okay, so you will get an idea of the kind of person that that particular student is. Okay, so from there on, we are going to take the student. Even if the student doesn't read anything, it doesn't really matter, but we need to know what kind of learner that we have. It's not like, we are given a set of students, we go and teach a general English program. No, we need to be quite different. Only then the program can be successful. We need to know the kind of learner. If you're going to meet 30 students, you need to have some knowledge about each one of the students. You need to have a profile of the student. This profile is very descriptive. Anyone who looks at this profile would get to know, okay, if it is Nigam, for instance. Nigam is a reader. Okay, she reads. She doesn't like novels, but she's a voracious reader of, let's say, non-fiction. She likes memoirs more than anything else. And she spends every day about half an hour. But she has a desire to spend more than half an hour every day. Likewise, we need to find out from the students the kind of reader that they are. And we need to do this at least about 3 or 4 times during the 3-year program. Okay, whether to find out whether there is any kind of development, any kind of progression. Okay, after about, 6 months or 1 year or 2 years, and toward the end also, we are going to have this kind of a profile. So anyone who looks at, I think it would be much more valuable than the mark sheet that we issue. Mark sheet, somebody gets about 56, somebody else gets about 58. What's the difference between 56 and 58? Whether somebody is a recruiter or somebody does not know the difference between 56 and 58. And the kind of profile that we are going to create will be totally different. It will be descriptive. Anyone who looks at it, maybe the parents, maybe friends, anybody who looks at it will get to know the kind of person that you are. So it will have a profile, and it would be evolutionary profile. And secondly, the students can write the books that they read, things that they like about the book, and whatever they think. We shouldn't suggest that they should write reviews of the book, because the moment we make anything compulsory, the students are going to rebel against it. We can show them the way, okay, but I don't think that we need to insist that the students must do this. Okay, I think we should, as far as possible, avoid it. Could tell them that, do you like to write a review of it? Which passage that you liked about it? Did you like any particular character? Things like that. Let them write if they want to do it, and this will be a kind of portfolio. Portfolio, I'm sure all of us are familiar with it. In other words, it's a kind of note. Okay, it can be a folder also in which the students record the reading experiences, the writers, the titles, because after 3 years' time, they might not remember the title, might not even remember the remember what they've read. So I think this portfolio would help them out to get an idea of what it is all about. And the last thing that I want to mention about is ELTAI would conduct monthly events. Okay, it will be online. And let's say, what do I mean by monthly events? Maybe we could invite celebrity writers and get the celebrity writers to interact with the students. We have 8-year-olds, 12-year-olds, even the students themselves publishing books. Can we get such students? Even if it involves money, I don't think that we need to bother about it. I think we need to get such people, get the celebrity writers, maybe somebody who has got the Sahitya Academy Award, or someone who has got the, trying to recall her name. Shravan, you could help me out. Someone who has got the award recently for
Booker
translation.
Prize.
Sorry, a Booker Prize. What's her name?
Gitanjali Shri.
Gitanjali Shri. No, I think it would be quite exciting to listen to those people. Incidentally, the reading that we are promoting is not only in English. We are trying to promote bilingual reading. Okay, because all of us know that the reading skills are transferable from one to the other. Okay, so even the eye movements, the way we process a thought, these are all extremely important, whether we read in English or whether we read in regional language. And moreover, in a country like ours, we need to become bilingual, multilingual. and try and promote, because there are enough number of studies in the West to show that learners are capable of learning any number of languages. I don't know why we say that you need to learn 2 languages or 3 languages. This is very confusing. And we also keep saying that L1, L2, and L3. And I keep asking, L1, L2, L3, what is it that the students' learning mind can make out of it? We as administrators, we know what we mean by L1, L2, L3. If a language is given to the student the way it ought to be given, their minds are willing to learn any number of languages that we give them. We create artificial barriers. We are the obstacles for the learners to learn. So I think that kind of a problem should be avoided. So ELTAI would conduct monthly events, inviting some celebrities or some of the international events like a DEAR, drop everything and read. And we could have author of the month and things like that. Number of activities can be, as we go along, we will get input from you. Even locally in your own school, you could conduct your own program. And, some time ago, Dr. Shravan was suggesting that we need to recognize the readers, star of the month, for instance, someone who reads the maximum number of books on a Founders Day, on a Sports Day. Can we recognize such students? That's a morale booster for that particular student as well as for the others. There is some kind of recognition. You as the principal, when you recognize a student, there's nothing like that. I've come across a student, in the first standard, the teacher of the first standard, the girl did something good and then she fixed a star on her hand, just a sticker. And that girl for about a week refused to wash that particular hand. That's the kind of impact that we are creating. And we as teachers, I think we are the heroes or the heroines. And even the parents don't have that. Parents keep saying that that children don't listen to parents, but they listen to the teachers. Even if the teachers commit a mistake, and the students are willing to go by the mistakes of the teachers rather than the corrections given by the parents themselves. So likewise, we would have the events. And lastly, ELTAI would have one mega national event. This will be along the lines of Spell Bee contest, which is conducted in USA. All of us know the kind of words that are given in Spell Bee. Okay, when we know that the kind of words that are given to spell out, we are happy that Indians are winning that. But the kind of words that are given to spell out are, I would say, the weird words. Nobody uses them under the sun. I don't know why such a stupid contest has become so very glamorous all over the world. The entire world is enamored of this particular contest. Okay, something along the lines. Can we do something like speed reading? Speed reading is one of the skills that our learners need to acquire. But mind you, speed reading has nothing to do with one's intelligence. Speed reading is one of the skills, but the learners, when they read a textbook and when they read the newspaper, when they read a pulp fiction, they need to know what kind of strategy that they need to adopt. They should have the ability to read faster, as fast as they could do. So we could conduct some such contest, and then we can also conduct quiz. When we conduct quiz, we need to get the celebrity. Maybe people like Siddhartha Basu. I mean, these are the old names, or O'Brien. People of that kind. Can we get people like, let's say, Dhoni or Sachin Tendulkar from sports? Anybody except politicians? Can we get the top people, so that they come and they can excite the students? Sustaining the interest is the major thing. We can start it off, but somewhere along the lines, the interest would fade away. I think we need to avoid that. So let me end by saying that I've taken too much of time. I want to say that what is it that we are trying to drive at? Okay, ELTAI wants your institution to become the reading institution. ELTAI wants your learner to be readers, autonomous readers, lifelong readers. If you make right from the primary level onwards, if you make your student, your learner as a reader, I don't think they need byju's. I don't think they need quotas. Okay, they would manage everything on their own. That's the only way forward. So let's join our hands. I want this to be our vision, as Dr. Nigam pointed out, our vision, our mission. If all of us can join hands, this is something that we need to do for our students. Our students need it. Otherwise, developed countries might not be very much concerned about these things. But we as a developing country, we have got the hunger in our stomach. Education is everything for us. I think our students are looking forward to this. When there is so much of crisis around us in terms of employment, in terms of everything, I think we need to get our students ready. So that's the reason why ELTAI wants this to become a movement, something like a Chipko movement. I'll end with this. There are 300 million students in our institutions from primary to university level. So when we have 300 million students, we have 600 million parents. We have 500 million uncles and aunts. I think it should be kind of bottom-up movement. Thank you all very much. In case you got any questions after Dr. Shravan, and if Nigam permits us, we could take the questions for clarifications. Thank you all so much.